Hi, everybody. Nancy Adkins here with Adkins Family Law. I just want to bring to you a few minutes where we can talk about some questions that are coming into the office. And so these are commonly asked questions that I'm getting from people who are calling me. So I just wanted to share a few minutes with you to kind of go through in a live situation some of these questions that keep coming to the office. So maybe one of these will pertain to you. And if you do have a specific question for me, we do these live Q&As pretty regular. So you can certainly follow me on social media, click on one of the links below and follow me on social media, and you can certainly submit your question. And then you could be one of those people where I'm answering your question on one of these live Q&As or one of our webinars. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got 10 minutes this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and go through some questions that have come into the office. And the first question that I have for you guys today is, if the father and I are not together and he lives in a different state, do I have to talk to him every day about the baby? So the answer is no, you don't have to talk to him every day about the baby. You know, we have here in Florida that you want to be the parent who encourages the relationship with the other parent. That's our first factor in the time sharing analysis. And so I kind of have questions to answer the question. I'm going to make the assumption that this person asking the question is not married to the other person, because it makes a big difference in whether you're married to that person or if the two of you got together and you had a baby together and then the relationship soured and you guys have gone your own way. So if you're not married, my answer is going to be real different from somebody who is married, because if you are married, you really do need to stay in touch with the other parent to make sure they know what's going on. But you also don't want to be the parent that does everything, where you call them and you text them and you email them and like, okay, here's what we're doing today, and here's what we're doing tomorrow, and here's what we're doing the next day, because it's just as much the other parent's responsibility to check in and see how the child is doing. So you don't want to be the parent spoon feeding the other parent about what's going on. You also want to create some space for the other parent to check in and see how their kid is doing, because I think you got to know on some level if they're concerned. So that's a good indicator if the other parent is checking in. So I think the most important part of this answer is the two of you are communicating and that you're communicating regular. I don't know if it has to be every day. I don't know that it has to be every hour in a play-by-play, you know, like watching a football game or something. But I think if you're checking in and things are going well with the child, you might talk about an extracurricular activity. You might talk about a teacher or something that happened at school. Things that you want to key into would be information relative to the doctor appointments, or if you have a dentist appointment, or if there's something going on at school, you want to let the other parent know about a parent-teacher meeting, or if there's a mixer at school with an open house, you might talk about that. And then anything else that you think is important. And certainly the other piece of that would be that if there's an emergency with the child, you definitely want to let the other parent know that there has been an emergency. Once the emergency is addressed, obviously you want to get your kid to the hospital first, right? And once everything has leveled out, then notify the other parent there has been an emergency and give them the information. And then whether the other parent responds or reacts is up to them, but you certainly want to let the other parent know about emergency situations, and then keep them informed as needed about the important things or the major events that are going on with the baby, and let them ask you, how's the baby doing? Because you don't want to have that perceived as, you know, you're trying to talk to them when they don't really have an interest in the child. So that can be telling for you as well. So here's another question that came into our offices, and it says, I've been separated from my spouse, and the spouse lives in another state for more than 3 years. And I'm living in Florida, and my spouse refuses to sign the divorce papers. So can I get a divorce from my spouse when they refuse to sign? And the answer is yes, you can. You can get the divorce. You know, Florida is a no-fault state, and the only thing you have to have is to be a resident of Florida for 6 months before you do the filing of the divorce, and then you can get your divorce. It's a no-fault state. So the other thing that I would add into that is, if you have kids or you have property, then you will need to get some participation from the other person. And there are certain things that you have to do along the way to make sure that you've tried to get them to participate and they just absolutely outright refuse, because that's not an option either. But there are other requirements beyond just getting the divorce. If you guys have to do a property settlement, or if you have to do a parenting plan, there's going to be some other steps that you have to take. But the basic answer to that question is, if your spouse is living in another state and they refuse to sign divorce papers, then just go ahead and file your divorce, as long as you've been living in Florida for 6 months, and you'll get your divorce. So go ahead and get started on that. Don't wait for them. We don't want them running the show here on this. Okay, so here's another question that I thought was interesting too, that came in from one of our viewers. And the question is, how can I get custody of a child that isn't related to me? And that's a great question, because we have so many people who want to step up and be parents, or, sadly, the kid gets dropped off at the doorstep and then you're left watching somebody's kid, and you want to do the right thing and you want to do good by the child. And then sometimes the parent doesn't even come back, or you don't hear from them. And then they're just MIA, and you're with this child, and you've got to make medical decisions, and you got to make decisions about the schooling and what's going to happen with this child, and who's going to pay for the kid. Did I mention the money part? So one of the options that you have, there's a couple of things that you can do, and it really depends on your situation, but two options that you have would be to either file for temporary custody of the child, and you can do that as an extended family member. It just depends on whether there's a blood relationship there. If there's a blood relationship, that's an option for you. And if this is some child that is just a friend of a friend of a friend that got dropped off on the doorstep for a few days, and then a few days turned into a few weeks, and then it turned into a few months, and now you're like, what do I do with this baby? So you could file for a formal adoption, and you could get the adoption done. It's fairly simple, because if you've got the child in your possession and it's been like that for a couple of years, then it's a question of whether you need the consent from the bio mom or the bio dad. And that's a little more case specific. But my answer to that question is, I would be filing the necessary paperwork to get an adoption done, or to do the petition for temporary custody, depending on your situation. But there's certainly ways for you to get a court order that says, hey, I have legal custody over this kid, and that temporary order is just indefinite until it gets quashed, or if the court does a set aside. So you could get a temporary order, and then it would be incumbent upon the other person who doesn't like that you have the custody to come back and say, hey, I got to quash this custody, and here's why. And then they would have to say, hey, judge, I wasn't here because fill in the blank. So listen, it's going to be up to them about why they put their baby on your doorstep, and now you're here trying to do right by this kid and follow the best interest of the child. And if you want to step into that role because this kid's been with you, there's case law out there too that says, listen, you're developing a relationship with this child, and maybe the child rightly belongs with you. So there's a lot of things to think about in that particular question, but I certainly would be looking at whether you want to file for temporary custody, or if you want to go for a full-blown adoption. But you have choices, and that's my point with that question. So let's go ahead and move on. And if you guys have more questions about that, listen, call my office, and I'll have a complimentary consultation with you about that. There's just a lot of options in that scenario. And I really just want to let you guys know that if you have a kid and it doesn't biologically belong to you, there's ways that we can do that to help you make that an official legal relationship. So call me and I'll talk about your specific situation with you and figure out what's going to be best for you. So the next question that I have, this is an interesting one then too. And I think this is attorney specific. So you really have to reach out to the attorney that you're interested in hiring. But the question that I have is there a divorce attorney that would accept a payment plan? And my answer is yes, absolutely. I have a retainer that starts, and it's a lot of money. I don't have that kind of money sitting around. So if you're not loaded with cash and you're having trouble coming up with the retainer, then I do accept a payment plan. And we always work something out so that you can make installment payments, or, we can really work on some sort of a budget or design that works best for you, so that you're not having to pay everything up front, but you can get on a payment plan. So that way I get paid for the work that I'm doing, and you don't have to absorb everything right in the beginning. It's kind of a pay as you go sort of proposition that I would honor. And certainly call some of the other divorce attorneys out there that you might be interested in looking at, because I don't think every divorce attorney is going to take a payment plan. Some of them out there are very adamant about, you have to have the money, and I'm not going to talk to you until you have, X number of dollars, whatever that retainer is. So, and that also helps too with finding the divorce attorney that's a good fit for you. So, if you're calling around and they're like, I need all this money to get started, then maybe they're not the right attorney for you. If you're the kind of person that really wants to pay the bill, really needs the help, and you're doing the best you can from month to month, and the attorney wants to help you out, then maybe you are looking for that attorney who does take a payment plan. And I'm one of those attorneys. I always work with my clients. If they need to get on a payment plan, I'm happy to work with you and figure out what's going to be the best for both of us in that situation, so you can get your problem solved, and I make sure that I'm covering my bills and getting paid, and that I can cover my payroll, right? So anyway, yeah, I do take a payment plan and check with the attorney that you're calling to make sure if they do or not. And you just have to keep calling to find the attorney that does want that. So let me go ahead and go to the next one. This is kind of straightforward for me, but I thought it was important because this might be, it comes up a lot in my office as far as asking the questions. It's apart from the divorce, or it's apart from time sharing, but when the two of you are breaking down the relationship and you're getting your stuff and they're getting their stuff, the question is, should I be looking for a lawyer to help me get my belongings? And, I'm always going to tell you that a lawyer is helpful, because I like to think of myself as a helpful lawyer. So I do want to help you out, and I do want to get your belongings. And one of the things I try to recommend to my people is for them to actually, one of the things that you can do is talk to a lawyer about it. And then if you're talking to a lawyer about it, one of the things that I try to tell my clients, shoot, mama, stop. Sorry, guys, my kiddos. Anyway, so one of the things that I try to tell my clients, you can employ the assistance of a friend who could, escort you to get your stuff. You can also call the local police officers or the police department, and they will help you. They'll come and they'll supervise you getting your things, and they'll let you take whatever you need to take out of there. So it's just a matter of scheduling it with the other person, and then either getting a friend to help you or getting the local police department to help you out. They will certainly come and just supervise the exchange of your stuff for you to go and pick it up and get yourself out of there, and then be safe. Because that's the other thing that I want to make sure everybody is doing when you're getting your stuff, is that you're safe, and that you're getting what you need to get without the tensions rising, and making sure that people behave and that they're on their best behavior when that happens. So just make sure that you talk to an attorney who can help you with specific advice in your situation. And then you can certainly rely on a friend who can help you out to escort you, or you can call the local police department and they will help you out as well. So you can get an attorney to help you get your belongings if that's what you need. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So call the attorney and talk to the attorney about specific ideas that would be relevant in your situation. So, and that's the last question that I have time for. Actually, I am running out of time for this particular live Q&A. So I hope you guys got something out of it, that there was some little nugget for you that might apply to your situation, and that maybe this has been helpful for you in terms of, educating you and making sure that you're getting the information that you need relative to your case. And if you didn't get the information that you need, then please call my office. And I'm happy to speak with you. You can just set up an appointment with Pam at my office, and I will speak with you about your specific situation. And the other thing that we can do too is follow me on social media. We have a ton of channels going out there. Follow me on social media, submit your question. You can do it anonymously, and I'll go through that with my crew. And hopefully we'll get your question answered on the next Q&A or the next webinar. So check me out on social media down below, And we'll make sure that we get you the help that you need. So thanks for joining us today. Have a wonderful day, guys, and I'll see you all on the next time.